Hello, hello, hello. Hey, everybody. My name's Dave Schools. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Singulate, and I'm pumped to be with you here today. Wherever you're joining from, say hello in the chat. Just drop, maybe say hi from and whatever city, wherever city you're located. I'm super excited to chat with you today. We have a full hour, and we're going to have an awesome discussion. So before I do anything else, hey, Cheyenne, good to see you. Before anything else, let's get my co-host, Joe Cunningham, up on screen. We can get started. Hey, Joe.
What's up, Dave? How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing great.
Cool. Let's get our slides up. And here's what we're going to be chatting about over the next hour. Hope everybody has some coffee or tea. Joe, are you a coffee or tea drinker?
I'm a coffee drinker. Yeah.
Cool.
But I'm drinking water right now.
Nice. I got some water as well. Coffee.
Nice.
Lots of coffee.
Lots of coffee.
All right, cool. Well, this is what we're going to be chatting about today. We'll get to introductions here in a second, and then we're going to jump into some icebreakers and some conversation starter questions. I hope you all will join us in the chat, talking about my two favorite topics, AI and copywriting. And then we'll move into a little overview of an AI copywriting framework that I want to share with you all, and we'll talk through. And then we'll move into a brief product demo of Singulate's AI personalization marketing platform. And then we'll end with an introduction of our Copywriter program. This is a special certification that we're offering copywriters that we're going to be talking about and unpacking throughout the next couple minutes. So sound good?
Sounds good to me.
Let's do it. I'll kick off and then toss it over to you, Joe. So, hey, everybody. Like I said, I'm Dave Schools, co-founder and CEO of Singulate. I'm located north of Baltimore, and we kicked off Singulate about a year ago. And just a little bit of background on kind of where Singulate came from. I have two co-founders, Nico and John, and we met at our previous company, Hopin. Hopin was the virtual event platform that kind of went through a period of hyper growth during the pandemic. We went from 0 to over 1,000 employees in like 2.5 years, and we scratched at 100 million ARR also in that 2-year period. It was wild. We bought 5 different companies, and I joined the founder of Hopin in the early days. I was the first employee, and actually a fun fact about me is I ran the first Hopin event in history through my Medium publication, Entrepreneurship Handbook. And that's where my eyes were open and I got excited and I joined the founder, and I was there for 5 years. And while at Hopin, through across the different business units that we had there, and with our different, we had a marketing team of 45 incredible people. I learned an insane amount. But one problem that we ran into over and over again, this is kind of where Singulate came from, was we had so much data in our CRM and from our own event product, from third-party data, from our CDP. We had tons of data, but when it came to leveraging that data in our marketing messaging, specifically in our copywriting, and like deploying our persona-based, segmented messaging across our lifecycle marketing and our marketing campaigns, that's where it was too difficult and it was hard to do, and marketers are busy. So we ended up just settling for email blasts, sending everybody the same thing with just first name and company name pretty much in the email. And so segmentation and personalization were really hard to do, and the data behind doing that. So that's where Singulate came from, and this is the problem that Singulate solves best. So what Singulate does is it makes segmentation and content personalization at scale really, really easy to do for marketers to drive up to 10 times more pipeline revenue and growth for go-to-market teams. So that's a little bit of an overview of myself and Singulate. Joe, tell us about you.
So I am an hour west of Philly, and I have been I'm working in a few capacities as a independent freelance conversion copywriter. I'm also the managing editor for Stacks Marketer, the digital marketing newsletter, and been doing that for I think 3 years now. And I've been doing independent contracting for this is my 5th year. Before that, I was in-house as a digital marketing manager, doing all the things, email marketing, blogging, newsletters, PPC, SEO, all that stuff. So yeah, I've been doing in-house marketing. I did in-house marketing for about 7 or 8 years before going freelance. And
Super cool.
yeah, here we are.
I think we met through the Exit 5 community. So shout out to Dave Gearhart and the Exit 5 team for putting together a pretty incredible B2B marketing community. I've loved being a part of that. I think that's where I
Same.
first came across your name, Joe.
Yep. Same here. Same
I,
here. Great community. If you're in B2B, and you want to learn a lot about what other people are doing, it's a good spot to be. And you meet
Cool.
great people like Dave too. So and me, I'm all right too. So
Also, quick plug for Drive. If anyone's considering going to Drive, I went last year, and I'd say it was one of the best conferences that I've been to, as far as like mix of people that you meet, location, venue, content that you receive. Highly recommend getting up to that one in Burlington. One other quick one
when
is
is that?
that's I believe it's in September.
Okay, nice.
One other quick one I wanted to mention, Joe, is I was in a very similar spot to you about 6 years ago, where I was an independent editor, copywriter, marketing consultant for different tech startups. I even did ghostwriting for CEOs, and that's where I kind of fell in love with copywriting way before then. But I've been in your shoes and kind of working with dozens of clients, providing marketing services around content specifically, and conversion copywriting. So let's jump into our first icebreaker. And if you're watching this, if you're on LinkedIn or you're on StreamYard, let us know your opinions too. We're all about the hot takes here. So question is, AI writing, good or bad? What do you think, Joe?
It's pretty mixed, I think. I think that it really depends on how you use it. I think it depends a lot on the quality. People say, it's the quality of your prompts, it's your prompt skills. I think it's also the contextual data that you give the AI and the order that you give it in. And and I do think that the more I use it, the more convinced I am that if you're really good at what you do already, you're a good writer, you're good at copywriting, you're good at bringing out ideas. AI is just going to make you even better, because you're going to be able to generate brainstorm a lot of ideas. You're going to be able to quickly sort out what the fluff is, basically, because the first couple outputs you get are going to be not great. But I also think that if you're not great at those things, AI is just going to amplify the fact that you're not great. So I think that's kind of my hot take on AI writing in a nutshell. What do you think, Dave?
I have lots of opinions on this, obviously. I think if I had to lean one way or the other, I would say bad. However, it's extremely useful, and up levels poor copy and poor messaging to something that's good enough or average enough to be usable.
Yeah.
But and also it's an AI is an amazing thought partner and helping you come at a messaging strategy with different angles, and giving you a good amount of ideas to consider. However, I think when it comes to the actual output, when we're talking from like a B2B marketing perspective and from a company that's using AI in its messaging, that's where it's going to give good information. But when it comes to the presentation of that messaging to end users, that's where I think you start to lose your brand voice, the voice and tone and kind of character of different AI models. It's kind of like what Cheyenne said in the chat. If you don't train it well enough or put in enough fine tuning and controls and verification and validation so that it remains on brand, there's always the risk. It's getting better week over week, of course, and more useful. but there's still, the risk of hallucination. There's still, like the off chance that it writes in a way where it could potentially impact your brand reputation. So I'd say like across the board or overall, AI is great. And I use ChatGPT Pro. That's kind of my go-to agent. Which one's yours, Joe? Which one do you find yourself in the most?
GPT and Claude. Yeah, those are my. I actually feel like GPT got better than Claude recently. Before it wasn't that way. I thought Claude was better, but I feel like recently GPT has gotten better. But
how do you determine which one to use? Just curious, like which one to go to?
actually, right now it's mainly project based. If I'm writing a lot of workflows, like SDR workflows or marketing nurtures, then I'm going to use GPT. But if I'm writing a more crafted one-off, like a one-off promotional campaign or something, then if I'm drafting like business documents like SOPs, then I'll use a Claude for that. But and sometimes I use them both at the same time. If I've got a new project and I kind of want to get a wider selection of ideas, I will give the same prompts to both of those agents and see what I get from them, and kind of like work with both of what they provide. But to your point, like I think that like your point about tone is really important because they can both easily settle into a very kind of similar tones that aren't particularly like nuanced or unique. And I think as good as AI is getting, in my experience, it still needs a heavy human touch to get those prompts even like workable. Especially if brand tone and reputation is important. Like you're going to need to have a human hand.
Cool. I think that's a good transition to the next conversation starter here. How can you tell when an email is AI generated? If you have thoughts in the chat, let us know. How can you tell when an email specifically is AI generated? I think for me, it's almost like, I don't know if over personalization is the word to use here, but it's like you can tell, especially if it's something, one of the more advanced AI kind of SDR outreach tools. Like that's where, you can tell that it's scraped my LinkedIn, like it's collected publicly available information about me, but then how it phrases that is clearly like bulk, like done in bulk. And that comes from just kind of an overly generalized prompt that's kind of on autopilot that hasn't been fine-tuned or controlled enough, I'd say. I think the other one, and I'm curious of your thoughts on this, Joe. I think the other one for me really quick is in subject lines. Like usually you can tell an email is bulk personalized when your name is in the subject line, usually. Because, like if I'm sending somebody an email one-to-one, like to you, Joe, I'm not going to say like, Joe, like quick question.
Yeah. Right.
It'd be just like quick question, and then like it comes from me. So those are my two thoughts on this. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with the first thought. Well, I agree with both of them because I've seen that a lot too, but especially the kind of mass scale. It feels like almost like Mad Libs at scale. They just kind of like copy paste some information about you that's publicly available, and it's clear. It feels very templatized. And frequently, the information that they drop in about you is still kind of shallow or superficial. And this kind of brings me to like the main thing I notice about AI generated emails and AI generated writing, generally speaking, is there's a generalness or vagueness about the writing. There's not like a really good sense of the context of something. The ideas the sentence structures are frequently like in the ever evolving landscape or in the world of, and the detail. There's just a lack of detail or specificity, which I think is definitely a a risk of relying on AI too much. Yeah.
We're going to get into that here in the next couple of slides. Cheyenne says pretty much any sales email in my inbox I know before opening it's AI generated. Curious, Cheyenne, how do you what's your secret there to telling that? We'd love to know, and anyone else too. If like what gives away an AI generated email, drop that in the chat. Cool. Yeah, I think a great point around specificity and kind of like sharpness is like another word I'd use to describe like it's lacking a pointedness or like even like a person like an opinion that's relevant to you. And like because the pitch tends to be the same regardless. The other giveaway that I find is that the phrasing of like as a job title working at company name.
Yes.
And then maybe if they're doing great, then they put in the industry, like in the type of industry. That sort of like as a blank working at blank is like a dead giveaway, because if that's true, like if you know they're like say a marketing manager working at say like Whole Foods, like you're just going to speak to them as a marketing manager. Like the content of your email will be relevant to a marketing manager working at Whole Foods, and you don't have to like remind them of their job description and their employer. Like it's unnecessary. But like that's how, like when you tell an AI, an LLM to personalize a message, that's the phrasing that always goes in, and it's a dead giveaway. It's like forced personalization.
So true. Yeah. That and I think you shared a list of words recently that AI defaults to, whereas like ensure and trying to think of some other ones like synthesize and like whatever.
Fostering is a big one.
Yeah. I'm just like no human uses that. Like
yeah. We have an opinion over on the Singulate side that the best personalization is invisible, and we're going to unpack that a little bit more, as to what that means. But the idea is that when you're personalizing effectively, you're using the most relevant messaging to that person, such that it's just helpful, it's just thoughtful, like it's just a good message for them, and you don't have to remind them of their job title, their company, like the token-based static personalization, but actually change the content itself so that it's relevant to that person. That's what we're all about. So next question: what does the future of copywriting look like? We're in a world where AI is inundating all content creation across the board. So with AI kind of taking over the lion's share of copywriting, and I'm hearing left and right about copywriters losing work to AI, headcount being dropped because AI is in the copywriting industry, because AI is good enough or is replacing, copywriters left and right. So what does the future of copywriting look like? Where does copywriting go when AI can do 90% of the work that a copywriter has historically done? I think that's it's a good question, and I've got some thoughts on it. Joe, you've been a copywriter for over 5 years now, longer. This is your field, your trade. AI's come in. So what's happening? Like where's copywriting going?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big question. I have a couple thoughts. I think on the one hand, yeah, absolutely. A lot of teams are shrinking. They're like, hey, with generative AI, we're at the point where we can just have one person and they can produce all the campaigns, all the ads, and it's going to be good enough. Like it's going to be passable. It's going to do what we need it to do. And that definitely has crunched the opportunities for a lot of copywriters that were doing freelancing. And I think actually for content writers in particular, people who are writing blog, like SEO optimized articles and blogs and so on. I've seen a lot of those kinds of writers talk about how hard it is to get work to. On the other hand, I think there's also there's a lot of pressure now, both on copywriters and in-house teams. The copywriter Stefan Georgi was talking about this recently, that the time frame now has completely changed. Before, I think it was relatively expected. Clients would ask you, hey, what's your availability like? Like, how soon can you turn us around? They would expect it to take like a week, like 2 weeks, maybe even a month to turn around like homepage copy, an email sequence, whatever it was. But now it's almost more like, especially the marketers and the CMOs who are working with contractors and teams and know AI pretty well. To them, they're like, what? You're still working in a week's timeline? Like, you should be able to turn around, especially if you're really good and you know what you're doing with AI, you should be able to turn around campaigns within like a few days. Like, so there's this kind of like pressure of not only like getting the right opportunities, but also being able to produce quality work a lot sooner than before. So I think the future of copywriting, to me, it definitely seems like it's a combination of being able to produce really quality work that, sooner, faster. But I also do think that, like, yeah, the structure of teams are changing. So, the copywriting opportunities aren't going to be the same as they were. It's not going to be as simple as like, hey, I'm just going to write this stuff for you. I think copywriters really have to become strategists too. I think they need to be growth strategists, business strategists, and they also need to be able to think like data strategists, which I know we're going to kind of like get into. But that's what I see. Like,
Yeah,
I think
totally.
the leverage for copywriters will be strategy and not just writing words.
Yeah, jumping off that, I think that's exactly it. Like, copywriting historically has been the art of conversion, right? It's like saying the effective words that move the viewer, the reader, the end user through to action, like calling them to action so that they take the action. And when I was first learning about copywriting, it started with, like, you think of billboards or like magazine tear-outs, like magazine ads, and it's like those perfect 3 words that like resonate and like have that story, that emotional moment where it just clicks and they move to buy. That's definitely
Or
more
at
on
least
the
they feel something. It's like Stefan Georgi talks about that too. It's like either they buy, or you've changed a belief, or you've changed a feeling in them about something. Anyway, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And Frank Lunson, in his book, I quote this all the time, Words That Work. The subhead is one of my favorites, and I think it captures a lot of kind of like the ethos or the purpose behind copywriting. And it's not what you say, it's what people hear. And that means that you really need to know your audience in order to write the copy that's going to move them, that's going to resonate and be relevant to them, such that they feel something to take the action and convert. So, like, applying that to marketing, what does it mean to know your audience? Or like, it means data. And like, in marketing, that translates to having data on your audience. And when you have data, then you have what it takes to be able to write the words that move each audience member through your funnel, or to book the demo, or register for the webinar, or buy the product. I think so the future of copywriting now, with AI and now with the data that we've had, like, the internet has exploded, and like getting data is not so difficult anymore. I'd say it's become fairly commoditized, at least a base layer of data. And you look at tools like Clay, Unicorns, EdX, can now kind of collect publicly available data and structure it in a way where you can use it in your marketing comms. So then that begs the question, great, like, I have all this data, and this is the problem I mentioned at the top of the call. It's like, we have all this data. Now, what do we do with it? Like, how do we use it in our copywriting? I think that's where there's been this break in modern marketing teams, where you have data living in one tool and with one team, and then you have content and copywriting and creative living in another tool, another team. And then in between, you have marketing ops that's kind of like trying to stitch everything together and keep the machine moving. But with those 3 different silos, that's where the data, it hasn't made its way all the way to the content and the copywriting side. And that's why I think a lot of marketing teams settle for personalization as first name, company name, maybe job title.
Mhm.
And that's about as far as it gets. But we're like 1% there. Like where this is going is the whole, not the rest of the pie, where it's like, imagine being able to leverage the full potential of the data that you have in your CDP, in your CRM, in what your clients have shared with you, so that you can speak to them at scale. That's like what's super exciting about what AI brings to the table. And so I think what that means for copywriters is the ability to write in that way. Like it's a paradigm shift to be able to leverage data at scale to do copywriting for individuals when you're
And I
doing
think
like
that's Yeah, totally. And I think that's something that a lot of copywriters, at least speaking for myself, have wanted. It's like because a lot of copywriters, the first thing that they'll say is you need to know your audience. You need to know your audience. If you're talking to a copywriter about a project, they're going to ask you questions about your target customer, their psychographics, their demographics, whatever. And I think a lot of copywriters have wanted to be able to write that copy that connects in a very deeply and intensely personal way. But because like we just, your clients, even with their best data, you're going to be limited in how you can speak to that or use that. You're kind of left with still copywriting frameworks like, if you're anything like me,
Mhm.
or like, these kind of frameworks and these sentence structures that are kind of prompting the reader to picture themselves in something, but you're not yet, because you can't personalize the message to that, like, truly one-to-one level. You can't really make it more connective, more
Right.
personal.
Yeah, totally. Let me go. We're just looking at the clock. Let me go to the next one. How can
Yeah.
copywriters get paid more using AI? Or put another way, how can copywriters generate more, like create more value for their clients using AI? Like more on like the specific strategies or tactics side. I think a couple things here is the role of copywriter, and kind of jumping off of what we just were talking about with data. The role of copywriter is expanding into a much more strategic role around messaging that involves using that data for growth, and kind of being able to deploy data in a template, in a model, in the right tooling, so that they can send the messages that are individualized at scale. I think that's where that's an exciting future that that copywriters have to look forward to, and can start learning now. And more specifically, what that looks like is like segmentation strategy, content personalization, where it's like if you take like the blog post or the study, the research report, the asset, the webinar recap that you are distributing to your list, but then you look at the individuals on your list and you say like, oh, for Sally, would I say, like, how would I summarize this webinar for Sally? Or for Jeffrey, like, how would I summarize this webinar differently for Jeffrey? Or if I were to present this report to this PMM at a larger company versus this content marketing manager at a startup, would I position it differently? Would I highlight the takeaways in a way that are more relevant to that person based on, the typical pain points or problems that they're working with on a day-to-day basis? I think the answer is like yes. And that's the new exciting kind of model, like strategy skill set that copywriters are going to be uh, expanding into, given what's possible now with AI. And like at Singulate, that's part of what we're building and enabling copywriters to do. And we're going to get into that. Um, but that's where I'd say, like, if you can do that, the end result is higher conversions, pipeline acceleration, more engagement from full funnel uh, leads, and upsells, cross sells, like acquisition. Like I think it's people have known that personalization, marketers have known that personalization, segmentation has had an impact, like a net positive. There's ample studies showing the impact of personalization and relevance in content for decades. It's just been difficult to do for decades based on the tech that was available, and AI is changing that. And we're going to go, I think we have a framework here that I'm going to present for how to think about this. But yeah, what are your thoughts, Joe, on this question?
Yeah, I mean, everything you said about being able to personalize and segment based on data in a new way with AI, which we're going to get into. I think that's absolutely going to be a way that copywriters can get paid more. And I think it's going to make them more. I think it's going to make copywriters very competitive too. And if you guys will see what we're talking about in a second. I could be wrong about this. I would love to hear copywriters' thoughts on this. Like, if you've got a thought on this, like, share it in the comment for sure. But I also think that becoming like an expert at a channel and copywriting is going to be a thing that is going to help you get paid more. Another thing I think we'll be touching on in a little bit, but like, there are so many marketing channels out there. There are so many acquisition and retention channels out there. I think the copywriters who are going to really succeed are going to be the ones who know those channels and how they play with the overall marketing stack and marketing strategy. They're going to be the ones who are going to be able to charge more because they will know the channel and its quirks and the limitations it has, the possibilities it has, how different audiences use that particular channel. That's going to give them a real expertise and edge.
And Joe, you're talking about like email, SMS, landing pages,
correct.
like any sort of communication channel.
Yeah. Or even like someone who's writing, like copy for video scripts for like TikTok versus someone who's writing it for, Reels or Instagram ads or something like that. Because every channel has its own, like, there's a lot to know. You start learning one channel and you realize it goes deep. There's so much you need to know about it. I think that's something that makes a lot of growth marketers' lives very difficult, is they have all these channels and not enough time to actually know them well or use them as effectively as they need. So that's
sure. Yeah, like if you're writing for email, then you have, but versus like LinkedIn messages or SMS, like you have, character constraints, for example. So like how you position or the ordering of your messaging is going to change based on the channel.
Totally. You have email, you have deliverability stuff you have to think about. Like, that if you're not getting a certain engagement, for example, you're not going to be your messages aren't going to get there anyway. So like I said, email copywriter, I think you have to understand deliverability and even how different platforms and like hosts like handle emails and so on.
Cool. Yeah. So specialization in a channel, I think that's a great take. Cool. I think now we can move forward at the half-hour mark, and I want to share with you all an AI copywriting framework. So we're in an era today where copywriters are now writing alongside AI, and kind of like I want to talk through what AI enables marketers, where we're at today, what's being done backwards right now, and where this is headed in the future to start preparing for and get an edge on to provide more value for clients and for the companies that you work at. So with this graphic, if you look over on the left-hand side, you can see relevance personalization. At the bottom, you see blast. Blast is like you're sending everybody the same thing, maybe swapping out first name. At the top, there's one-to-one relevance at scale. This is the end goal, right? Is like you're sending the right communication to the right person at the right time. That's been kind of the email marketers and trifecta, like the ultimate holy grail of marketing. On the bottom axis, you have low quality and high quality. And then there's two boxes here, human and AI. Can you guys see my cursor? I wonder if I need like a pointer. So on the low quality side, you have AI writing on autopilot. So if you do like little prompting, little fine tuning, and you just send out that AI output as is to everybody, that's generally like a lower quality, irrelevant communication. Don't do that. Then on the high quality side, so you could have like a really talented copywriter, somebody who knows their stuff, expert in the channel, knows the product, knows the customer pain points, and can write something really, really high quality. However, if you're sending that to the same person, like to the same list, to everybody on the list, and you're blasting out that content, it's still at the end of the day lacking relevance at the one-to-one scale level, right? That makes sense. So what has happened in the last 5 years with the advent of AI is this idea of copilots and AI agents, where you have humans doing the data ops of segmentation, personalization, data enrichment, and breaking lists down and kind of building in a lot more of the ops, to ensure that you're sending messages at a certain time to a certain group. And then you have AI running with the copy. So it's like, if I've heard a common phrase in the market around just the segment writes itself. Like if you can get the segment right, then AI can do a good enough job with the copy to write like a relevant message. And so I'd say argue where this is positioned in the graph is kind of right in the center. And it's not as low quality as just an AI writing, a blast message. It's not as high quality as a human writing, a super thoughtful newsletter. But it's right in between. It's okay. There's room to grow. We want to get in that top right corner. So the strategy here, or kind of the framework and how to think about this, is if you flip the data ops and the copywriting, and this is where we see the industry going, where AI is handling the painful parts, like the ugly parts of the job, specifically with marketers around segmentation, targeting, personalization, data and data enrichment, the marketing ops around reaching the right audiences at the right time, but then bringing copywriting and keeping copywriting in the human's hands. And that way, when you do this, you achieve AI-enabled marketers, where humans remain in control of the voice, the tone, the brand, the creativity, the direction, the originality of the messaging. But then you have AI taking the data and operationalizing it to extend that message that's been human inspired and human created and crafted, so that it's relevant at scale for each person, but still in the human voice. So that's kind of where we see AI enabled marketing going. It's really exciting because this is a net win for everyone across the board. Consumers, prospects, leads, customers receive more relevant, helpful, well-written messages and content that helps solve their pain points, addresses their jobs to be done. It's kind of like a newsletter tailored specifically for them. That's where so benefits the customers, leads, prospects, consumers, but then it also makes it it saves a lot of time on segmentation, personalization, like the data ops side for marketers. And businesses therefore drive more pipeline, and they accelerate leads through their funnel, and they find they can accelerate pipeline, close deals faster, and send their most relevant messaging to their audience at scale over the long term. That builds a brand, that establishes trust. It's helpful. That's kind of where we see this going, where we see copywriting and AI going in the future. Joe, curious if you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think this is, I think, we've been talking about this a few times over the course of this conversation, but, I think up until now, the way marketers have thought about personalization was mainly, the ideal is the right message to the right person at the right time. But I think up until this point, most of our channels have enabled us to send a message to the right person at the right time based on activity, but the message wasn't always right, or the message was limited in how personal and specific it could get, because you just simply couldn't really, you might know someone's purchase history or the name of their company or whatever, but actually being able to speak to that at mass scale when you have a full list of people, even when they're well segmented, is still really difficult to do. But I think you're right, though. I think that's where AI is going, is ultimately it's already helping marketers and copywriters actually send the right message to the right person, like that personalized message. And so it's not just about the activity or the timing anymore, which is where I think personalization got stuck, which is why we would see it stuck at first name and company name, kind of awkwardly worked into the subject line or the email copy. And that's changing.
Dude, 100%. I think like building off that, and this is Abias's comment in the chat. He's talking about, he mentions that we're speaking kind of in terms of B2B copywriting, but does this apply to B2C communication where messages are sent more frequently and one-to-one at scale might not be worth investing in? Abias, it's a great question. And I think overall in lifecycle marketing, which applies to both B2B and B2C, relevance in messaging is key. I mean, that's the commonality, right? But when you're dealing with higher volumes in B2C over B2B, that's where automation is key. And to Joe's point that you just said, Joe, is the problem with automation is how impersonal it's been, where it's like, yes, it's trigger based, like checkout reminders, nudges, recommended products based on past purchases, like the transactional data that you get from B2C customer journeys, you can trigger automations for, but then the messaging within those automations is what's been left behind and left out, where there's an opportunity now with AI to leverage the data that you have, the context and an LLM, to craft a messaging that's relevant to that person based on where they're at in the customer journey. That's a lot more than just sending a message at the right time, but it's actually tailoring that right time sent message to them based on the data you have. And this is like basically deploying your persona work. If you've created personas, now you can fully extend that persona into segmented messaging that uses generative personalization that's fine-tuned and crafted well, like with a robust prompt that's fully controlled so that it scales. And you're going to see this kind of in our approach to this in Singulate, so that it scales across your full automation. But at the end result is each person receiving a unique communication that's tailored for them. That's where this is going. I think that's pertinent and happening in both B2B and B2C. B2B, you have a lot more data points. There's a lot more nuance and relational context to think about. And that's where you need more control, I'd say, where B2C tends to be much more visual, light on text, much more transactional. But this framework applies to both.
Yeah, okay, cool. I completely agree. I think to Abias's point, like it's probably going to depend on the company, the product that you're talking about. There are probably some products like impulse buys that maybe the one-to-one at scale isn't going to make as much sense. But there might be other examples though in like the health industry where if you do have a lot of data on someone, you could send really personalized messages based on what they've shared with you. So it just depends. But I think it absolutely applies though.
Cool. Great. Shifting gears over to a brief product demo. So we've been talking kind of at a high level for what the future of copywriting looks like with AI. We've talked through a framework around, what this looks like in the future. And now I want to get really practical and show you what this looks like in practice in Singulate's product. There's other product, like we're one of a number of products. I haven't seen any other product doing what we're doing or having taking this approach to this problem. That said, there's tons of other products out there that are, tackling this, but nobody's quite tackling it in the way that we are. And I want to show you our unique approach. And this is going to be lightning fast. And because I want to still share with you our certification program for copywriters and how you can learn these skills and learn how to use Singulate and bring them into your company and work with us as well as a copywriter and with our clients. But let me walk you through Singulate's platform, and Joe, jump in if you have you have anything to add. Joe's a copywriter who's well familiar with Singulate and how it works. So I'm excited to share it with you all. Now let's jump in. So here's Singulate. And I have this is a demo campaign, and we have campaigns and automation. So you can send one-off emails and automated emails as well with Singulate. First, we connect in your data. We have a lot more data platforms that we connect with here. HubSpot is our main one. We found that 85% of the companies that we speak with are on HubSpot and use it to bring all their data into HubSpot. And so Singulate kind of sits on top of HubSpot and lets you use the data that you have. And then we're delivery agnostic. We can send through any number of platforms, including our own. And the primary one that we see is sending and delivering through HubSpot. That way, all of your data remains inside your CRM, inside your source of truth, and you're not bifurcating your funnel. You're not splitting your data or your analytics, but it all remains there in one place. So Singulate and HubSpot are a great duo. We can bring in your lists, and then if you have templates, we can do plain text and rich HTML newsletter communications. And then any properties that you have map into Singulate as attributes and contacts as well. When you're ready to create a campaign, it's very similar to creating, a typical email marketing campaign. Name it, choose a template, select your list, and then configure your sender and pick your delivery provider, and then you start writing. This is where it gets exciting. The magic happens in Singulate in the editor. So here we start with list insights, and we bring your data into the editing and writing process so that you can see what kind of data you have to work with. With this example, this is a health app in this demo account. So there's some pretty interesting data here. I want to call out that it's okay if you only have, the basics like job title, company, employee count, industry. It's totally okay if you don't have a ton of data, because you can do a lot with a little in Singulate. But we show you the coverage that you have. So you know that if I use this data point to create a segment, I know what percent are going to get the fallback values. Similarly, we surface contact profiles as you're creating. So you can shuffle around to individuals and their data profiles as you compose your messaging. The purpose of this is to pressure check your messaging and say like, hey, is what I'm writing relevant to this individual? Is Becky going to find this relevant to her? If the answer is no, then you probably have more segmentation and personalization due to make this content relevant to her, as relevant as possible. And as you're reviewing the data, these are all inspiration and ideas for segments and ideas to create. And here's the cool part, is once you've created a Singulate template with these 3 AI features here at the top, then Singulate saves this and you can reuse it for the different use cases that you have, like a monthly newsletter, webinar invites, ABM outreach. Once you've created your segments, often based upon your personas, then Singulate remembers that and you can reuse it easily for all future campaigns. Okay, let me show you these 3 features: wow tags, branch content, and Singulated snippets. I'll start with branching first. So branching is the ability to create content on the fly. So here, if I pick branch, select it in the editor, I can create an audience just by describing it in natural language. So I could say, lives in California, and I hit generate. I don't know if I spelled that correctly on the fly here, but Singulate
fix it for you.
Yeah, Singulate names that cohort for you, tells you the exact number of contacts within that cohort. You can write something now for your California residents. I say, hey, I love California. It shows you example contacts within that cohort, so you can validate and verify accuracy. And then there's always a fallback bucket of uncategorized contacts, where here you can just keep branching by describing in natural language any cohort that you want to speak to for this part of your email. And you have the option to leave it blank as well, if you just want to have a shorter email and not send something generic to anyone who isn't categorized. You also
for your email. Oh yeah, sorry.
Please.
I was gonna say, for you email marketers out there, what you're looking at is basically you're segmenting a list, but right inside your messaging editor. So you don't have if you're working in HubSpot, you don't have to go to HubSpot. I mean, you can and you should, but you don't have to always go to your CRM or your email provider and like create, okay, I've got to like set up my filters, create a list of people who match this filter criteria. You can do this right in your messaging editor, which not only helps you segment better, but you can also, as Dave's going to show you, you can write those really personalized messages to that segment.
Mhm.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. So if branching is writing for groups, your cohorts, and segments in a modular way throughout your campaign, snippets is the ability to write for the individual at scale. So let me show you an example of how this works. Here it starts with a prompt. So you write your writing instructions where essentially you're saying, hey, write this, look at these data points that we have on the contact, and then write this message and use those data points to make it most relevant to them. And you can be pretty specific with those instructions. In fact, the more specific, the better. But then also you can use this content to summarize feature where you can drop in background data context. This could be like a ChatGPT deep research export. This could be a white paper, could be a webinar transcript. I thought here we have an NIH article that we're pulling in. And what you can then do in your writing instructions is say, like, look at that source material and highlight the two most relevant takeaways that for each contact based on their job title, industry, company, etc. Or if you have pain points, any data that you've collected, you can then use to tailor larger, more generic content, like a huge amount of data, like booths that you could recommend visiting at a conference that are most relevant to them, to your contacts at scale. So essentially you're building a model. FAQs.
Yeah, FAQs. Like if Steve, because different people in different roles are going to have different questions about your product based on what they do and how they would use it. You could give FAQs to the source material and pull the right ones. Objections, pull the right, drop objections in there, address the right objections for the right people. So much you can do with that.
A common one that we've seen is case studies. When a company has 65 case studies, they can drop all of them in to this section and then highlight the case study with a stat that's most relevant to the end user using a prompt. And and then the next part of this is fine tuning. But really quick, for any contacts who are missing data, you can provide a safe fallback text or just skip it as well. If you want to just have a shorter email, you can leave this part of your email blank. So you're only writing to those you have data on. But then you go into fine tuning, and fine tuning shows you example unique outputs for each person based on the prompt, and then gives you their data profile on the left. So you can see for Laurel here, like, this is a good output. If you like what you see, you hit approve, and that trains the model to do more like that. If you see like, this sounds off brand, this sounds like AI writing, this is too long, right? Like, if you don't like it for whatever reason, you can abstract out a prompt line and add that to your writing instructions and regenerate, and it will fine tune to the point where you're creating a pattern of personalization that scales across thousands and hundreds of thousands of users. The last one is wow tags. So wow tags is the ability to transform data on the fly. So here, data is not always clean or like ready to use in your content. So here we created a feature called wow tags, which stands for whatever you want. I'm trying to talk and type at the same time. And you can write in natural language, month, year, what you want to do with this data. And Singulate will, written as month, year, will then find the data point that you're referencing, transform it according to the prompt that you wrote, and show you example previews of what it looks like dropped into your content. So the result is taking this ugly timestamp and transforming it into something that is natural, organic, smooth for your copy. And you can add a fallback text or again, skip it if you want. So those are kind of the three features that Singulate has. At any point, you can hit preview, and this is going to show you full outputs for each individual, and you can see how each person gets like how it stacks together, and you can see the unique snippets they receive, their categorizations, the segmentation that they receive, and you can go through a number of them to see how the campaign shakes out before you send it. You can turn off features. You can send examples to yourself so you see what it looks like in your inbox. And then when you're ready, you hit review and generate. And here you go through a couple of review steps, and hitting generate creates each individual communication and batches it together as one campaign that then sends out through your delivery provider where you get your analytics. And what we tend to see is a 3 to 7 times increase in click-through rate. If you're doing this for an automation, then this is a template so that anyone enrolled and going through a workflow, when they hit this Singulate template, they receive a unique communication according to the template that you've crafted here. So that's a little bit of a demo about how Singulate works. If anyone and that was kind of one example with one set of data. If anybody's interested in seeing what it looks like with your data or what it looks like for your brand, definitely get in touch. Happy to have a chat and walk you through it for how it could work for each business is unique and their data is unique. So that's a walkthrough of how Singulate works. Next, I know I'm looking at the clock. We got 3 minutes. Let's end with a little bit of an overview of how to become a Singulate certified copywriter. So like what Singulate does is a paradigm shift. Like it's a whole new way to think about copywriting. And when you're doing segmentation and content personalization like this, you're able to think about targeting and messaging in completely new ways. And that's what we're training copywriters to be able to do for their clients and their companies. If you're interested in learning how to use Singulate and singulating content, that's what this program is for. And just a bit of an overview as far as what it means. If you're interested in signing up, scan the QR code. It will take you to the application form. But what it means to be Singulate certified is you're a copywriter or an agency, a service provider, and it means you're an expert in using Singulate's AI marketing personalization platform. You're able to use data and attach that to segmented messaging and content personalization for your clients. And so you're an expert, you're trained, you're experienced, you know how to use Singulate, you're working with us, and we also can provide work for you with our clients who want to use Singulate with their lifecycle marketing. And you're also a representative of our product. So when you become certified, you receive paid. You get added to a community in Slack. We do live training roundtables where we train copywriters how to use Singulate. We have client projects that we pay copywriters for. We can give you referral revenue if we bring a client in and they become a customer of Singulate. We have a referral commission that we pay. And then there's discounts available for any clients that you bring to Singulate as well. How to get started? I'm going to go quick through this, but we have an application. We give you a sample project with a brief. You complete that in Singulate and submit it to us. And we'll review it. We'll give you feedback, and you'll get a pass-fail. And if you're accepted, you'll complete a final onboarding and then receive your certification, which includes a badge, your certification, which looks kind of like this. And you can put it on your website. You can market it around. Like you can then offer like segmentation, personalization services to your clients, and we'll give you some swag. And as an example of somebody who is a certified Singulate copywriter, Joe is working with us. And Joe, like, do you want to speak to what is it like working with Singulate and with clients?
It's awesome. It is. I went from thinking, like, oh man, AI is going to like make copywriting harder to thinking, wait, AI is actually making copywriting so much more powerful and exciting than I ever thought. I've already used this with one of my clients. And we took a campaign that they were sending about once a month or so, and sent a highly personalized campaign using Singulate. And within like 24 hours, this client made more money than they had over the entire year of sending this email like once a month. They got like insane results from it. So this kind of one-on-one messaging is really powerful, and it's only going to get better too as Singulate grows and improves. And it's a real skill too. Like the more I use it, the more I'm able to learn creative ways to personalize data for clients and help them get better results. And so check it out. This is good stuff.
Yeah, we've another copywriter that we're working with has mentioned that using Singulate to create content for marketing campaigns is like, it feels like playing a game where it's like you have this data and you have features now to do, micro segmentation and generative personalization and transformation of data. I know I'm using all these jargony words, but it's tools that let you use the data that you have to better target your messaging easily, like instantly and really easily for end users. And it's a really fun challenge. And you can get really, really deep, I guess, with the personalization for a campaign or an automation. So it's like a puzzle that you get to fit, putting the pieces together, and we make that as easy as possible. So yeah, if you're interested in our certification program, get in touch. We love copywriting. And if you're excited about AI and kind of what the future looks like as far as marketing messaging and being able to send your most relevant comms to your leads and customers at scale, get in touch with us. If not, I think I'll go to the next slide and say thank you. Get in touch. Our emails are there. We're ending 2 minutes over. Not bad. And Joe, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Dave. Oh man, it was a great time. It's a great time. Thanks for having me.
Sure thing. Talk to you all later. Cheers.
See you guys.